Hello. So the river you see behind me is the Seine River in Manitoba. Right now I'm in the city of Winnipeg, in the south end in St. Vital, and I just ran about 5 kilometers along the Seine River. So in this video, I want to take you along with me and show you some of the video footage of the trail along the Seine. Because it is April in Winnipeg, some sections of the trail were quite muddy, so you'll see that reflected in the video as well. While I run, I'm also going to try and voice over some, I guess you could say, historic facts about the Seine River. Since it is a river that's very important for the Métis Nation here in the Red River Valley in Manitoba. So we'll talk a bit about the Seine, its importance to the Métis, and we're going to talk about the father of the famous Louis Riel Sr, who is known as the Miller of the Seine. So we'll talk about sort of the Riel family history and how that's associated with the Seine River here in Manitoba. The Seine River in Manitoba is deeply intertwined with Indigenous history and culture. The first reference to the river as La Seine comes from Alexander Henry the Younger, a Northwest Company fur trader who described the river as such in the year 1800. Traveling up the Red River, Henry's journal states, quote, "We passed Frog Pond on the west, and soon afterward Rivière la Seine, a creek which receives its waters from Cypress Hills, and after a winding course through a low country, which in the spring is generally flooded, empties at this place. The entrance is very narrow, though the river above is wider and deeper. In a short time we arrived at the forks, where the Assiniboine joins Red River, the former coming in from the west, while the latter keeps its direct course from the south." End quote. It is commonly assumed that French-Canadian voyageurs named the Seine after the Seine River in France. Henry merely wrote down what he heard. Others suggest, however, that the name may have been translated from the Cree Ojibwe word Chi Ma Ha Gani Sipi, which means draw net river. In French, une Seine is the noun used to describe that particular kind of net. So, the Cree Ojibwe etymology indicates the Seine's importance for fishing from a very early date. The Seine was also known as a good river to find beavers and muskrats, which provided valuable pelts during the fur trade era. The Seine also runs through historic Métis and Franco-Manitoban communities like Sainte-Anne and Saint-Boniface. We'll talk more about the Métis association with the Seine later in this video as well. Today we're running on 3 separate trails: the Seine River South Trail, the Bois-des-Esprits Trail, and finally the Louis Riel Sr Trail. This section is called the Bois-des-Esprits, a 117-acre urban forest. A 2-kilometer route runs through the Bois-des-Esprits along the Seine. A 3-meter tall spirit tree known as Woody-Mhitik used to inhabit these woods. Carved into an old elm tree in 2004 by local artists Walter Muroche and Robert Leclerc, and supported by the Save Our Seine organization, Woody-Mhitik became a powerful symbol of the forest and its protection. After years of exposure to the elements, the sculpture deteriorated, and it was finally decided in 2021 that its time in the forest had come to an end. Rather than let it be lost, a large section of the carving was carefully salvaged and restored by hand, stabilized, reinforced, and brought back to life in a workshop over several weeks. To ensure its long-term preservation, the restored piece was moved indoors to the St. Boniface Museum, where it could be protected from further decay. While no longer standing among the trees, Woody-Mhitik's legacy lives on and can still be visited today at the St. Boniface Museum. While Woody-Mhitik may be gone from the Bois-des-Esprits, you can see here that there are still many other carvings in the trees if you look closely. This section of the Seine River Trail is named in honor of Louis Riel Sr., the father of Louis Riel, arguably Manitoba's most famous resident and perhaps the most controversial figure in Canadian history. Louis Riel Sr. was born at Île-à-la-Croix in what is now northern Saskatchewan. He moved to the Red River settlement in 1843, where he married Julie Lagimodière and had 11 children, of whom the eldest was Louis, the famous Métis leader. Riel Sr. became well known as the Miller of the Seine, after he established a mill on the Seine River near St. Boniface. This mill was used to process grain and card wool for the nuns of St. Boniface. Today, the front grounds of the St. Boniface Museum, which was the former Grey Nuns Convent, displays the circa 1851 millstones used by Riel Sr. The original mill's location was on the bank of the Seine River at River Lot 50, just north of John Bruce Road in St. Vital, so essentially the section of the trail that we're running through right now. In 1949, millstones were unearthed on John Bruce Road, which was the general area of the mill site. The stones were identified at that time as the Miller of the Seine's millstones, and eventually they were moved to the St. Boniface Museum, where you can still visit them today. In a letter to the Archbishop of St. Boniface, Riel Sr. described how things were going at his mill. Quote, "I accomplished very little during the autumn with my mill, because the drought was extreme. However, I must be satisfied with the little I did accomplish, since the other mills did even less than mine. Wheat came to me from every direction, so that I ran out of water before I ran out of wheat." End quote. Riel Sr.'s mill was considered quite an engineering achievement for its time. To harness sufficient water power, he dug a canal to link the Seine to another waterway 12 miles to the east. The stream no longer exists, but it was called Rivière à la Graisse, which literally translates to Grease River, and its name suggests it was somehow associated with grease/fat processing derived from the bison hunt. The Rivière à la Graisse was also a tributary of the Red River, which ran almost parallel to the Seine. The Riels supplemented the income from milling with subsistence farming and trading, and probably maintained a satisfactory standard of living. This last part of the trail brings us to the highway named Abinojii Mikanah, formerly called Bishop Grandin Boulevard. Abinojii Mikanah is an Anishinaabe-Moan name translating to Child's Way. It was renamed in 2023-24 to honor residential school survivors and children who never returned home. It signifies resilience, honors Indigenous history, and represents a commitment to truth and reconciliation in the city of Winnipeg. Thank you for watching.